Building this shop next to my house ended up costing about twice as much as I originally hoped it would. I know this because I've been keeping a careful tally of exactly how much everything costs, which I'll share in excruciating detail. Blowing past my hopeful budget was almost expected, right? What I wasn't expecting though was just how long this process would take. What I originally hoped would be a 3-month project has stretched out to over 1 year. Yikes. But it's now done and it's time to start the fun process of setting it all up. Shop greatness awaits. This video is sponsored by Mr. Cool. It has been over 1 year since we broke ground on this backyard project centered around this. What is essentially just an over-engineered shop with an upstairs attic and a half bath in it. So how did it take a year? Well, for starters, the job site wasn't the easiest to access in the world, so we had to build a road around the backside of our house, and there was a certified butt ton of dirt that needed to be removed. And because of the drastic slope difference, we needed a pretty unique foundation capable of holding back all of that earth for the eventual shop. And then once framing was finally done, Mother Nature decided to sporadically decide to freeze and to rain, and you know the drill. And now that all the construction is done, we've got our final inspections passed, I can start the process of actually placing tools and thinking about shop layout. And as you can see, I've got my work cut out for me. But lucky for you, it's just gonna be a 10-second power montage. Before we do that though, I went ahead and got my new Harvey woodworking tools moved in here, which we'll unbox here shortly. Now, the daunting process of getting this place cleaned up has to start with a little bit of organization. I got a bunch of these clear storage totes, which will live in the upstairs storage room eventually. The idea is that each one has a specific use, like painting supplies, PVC fittings, electrical fixtures, you get the picture. Then once they're all labeled and stowed away, I'll know exactly where to go the next time I need something like that. Creating intentional places for things to live is one of the key tenets of shop greatness, in my opinion. The less time you spend running around looking for that thing you need and that you know you definitely have somewhere, the more efficient you can be building stuff. And with this shop being a construction site for the past year, and my current garage shop in complete disarray, I have been in a constant state of where the F did I put that thing? Safe to say, I'm really looking forward to returning to some level of normalcy here. So to get things in a usable state quickly, I opted to go for some of this new ToughBuilt workshop organization. I've become a big fan of ToughBuilt over the last couple of years, and this workbench and cabinet setup did not disappoint. Surprisingly good quality and beefy, which is really all you can ask for some off-the-shelf shop organization. This is going to be really nice in the corner of the shop where eventually I'll be doing some metalworking. And I do plan on building a bunch of custom cabinets throughout the shop. But having something like this makes getting up and running really easy. Now that I have a couple of places to actually put things, let's get the rest of this mess cleared out so we can get to work. One thing I spent far too much time doing during this shop build was planning ahead for everything I could think of, and then some more for good measure. One such example was this ventilation duct for my laser. I knew I might want to park it here along this feature wall, but ventilating it was going to be impossible after the fact. So I made sure to add a vent a long time ago, routed it down through the wall and under the stairs. Maybe I'll decide down the road this isn't the best spot for the laser, who knows, but for the time being, I'm glad I caught this little detail. Another shining example is this guy, my new Wazer Pro Waterjet. This is a very cool technology that doesn't usually exist in such a small form factor. When I was planning out this shop, I specifically created a spot for this machine. complete with a floor drain right below it, a dedicated 240 circuit, and its own water source. A quick test cut after setup hints at what this machine is going to add to my shop, and I'm pumped. Having a tool like this in the shop is going to open up so many possibilities of what I can do. We can cut metals, ceramics, glass, foam, really whatever the heck I want to put in there. So really excited to get this going. And now that that's unboxed, let's go check out what's in these other boxes. So obviously the shop is looking more and more open, but we've got this big pile of boxes here in the center from Harvey Woodworking, as well as the 2 big power tools over here. So let's get these quickly out of the boxes and see what we got. There are a few tool companies out there that I've become an unapologetic fanboy of, and Harvey just might make that short list. What I've seen so far out of this router table and these mobile bases is quite honestly pretty impressive. Even the level of quality evident in their accessories is off the charts. I'm definitely going to keep my eye on them going forward. But as much fun as I'm having unboxing all this wonderful new stuff for my new shop and feeling totally grateful for the ability to do so, I'm really comfortable thanks to my Mr. Cool mini split. You know, it's funny, of all of the cool tools and toys that I'm getting set up in this shop, the thing I get questions about the most is that. And I think the reason is because I installed it myself, and people probably inherently know I'm kind of an idiot. So they figure, well, I could probably do that too. And the answer is, yes, you can, and it's a lot cheaper than you think. All you really need are a very basic set of skills and access to an exterior wall. That's pretty much it. In my shop, I've got this wall mounted unit as well as a ceiling mounted unit up in the attic, and both were extremely easy to do myself. What makes it extremely easy is their pre-charged line sets, which is where all of the confusion and special know-how comes in the HVAC industry. Because all the line sets come pre-charged with refrigerant and all you do is make your final connections, there's no vacuums to pull or pressures to read or any of that crazy stuff. I'm always blown away when I come up to this attic room how cool and comfortable it really is. And what's great is because I don't spend as much time up here, I can set schedules thanks to the Wi-Fi module and just set a schedule up on the remote itself. So if you want to make a space more comfortable, whether it be just a one-car garage you're tired of sweating or getting too cold in, or a more complicated multi-zone space, go check out Mr. Cool at mrcooldiy.com because I guarantee they have something for you. And like I mentioned, you'll probably be surprised at just how affordable it really is. So as it turns out, the table saw and the bandsaw are both extremely heavy. Who would have thought? I mean, the table saw is 4 horsepower, full cast iron beast, and the bandsaw is 3 horsepower beast of its own. I think 580 pounds, around 480 pounds. Kind of goes without saying, this is a perfect example of where my ceiling or attic mounted hoist would come in handy. I could just rig these bad boys up, pick them up a little bit, slide in the bases, and be done. But I don't have my hoist yet, so we got to figure it out. So we really just need to get it up over this ledge and just set it down right here.
It's so tall compared to... I can't even get it off! I have to do it like with my legs. I can't do it with my arms. There's no way. There's no way. I can't. I mean, I did help you lift that thing, but this is just...
Can't do it, huh?
I need those lifting straps. She's trying.
Well. So the next day, I asked Brian to come give me a hand. and after some critical thinking, we were able to wrestle this beast off onto the mobile base. But the tall, awkward bandsaw required a bit of redneck engineering since it didn't have many convenient lifting points like the table saw. So after a lot of head scratching, I decided that building these wooden rails would be the best way to get it over the center of the mobile base so that we can slowly lower it down onto it. And every once in a while, it actually works out like I drew it up. When I was growing up, I watched my dad build and fix all kinds of stuff. He always took a hands-on approach, and it definitely made an impact on my early interest of building and creating stuff. On any given weekend, it always seemed like he had a project he was working on, maybe a DIY fix for around the house, or building out his 1989 Bronco into a rock crawler, or maybe restoring an old motorcycle. What always fascinated me as a kid was that it seemed like he just knew how to do everything. And there was no YouTube to reference back then, just experience and I guess a willingness to figure it out. But the crazy thing, thinking back on it, was that he never had a proper shop set up at our house. Certainly not anything like what I'm trying to build. His tools were usually shoved in one half of our 2-car garage, and he definitely didn't adopt the same OCD shop organization approach that I'm attempting. Yet, he still managed to get stuff done at a really high quality level. When my dad started his own company while I was in high school, my first job was sweeping the floor of a shop and helping out with odds and ends. His company produced vapor deposition systems, which are these automated machines operating under a vacuum to apply coatings to silicon wafers. Pretty high-tech stuff. I remember looking at these things, having zero idea how they worked, but marveling at the complexity. One thing I vividly remember though, was how meticulous my dad was when building them. All of the air lines for the pneumatic control system had to be routed neatly. The machine parts all had really nice finishes, and even the wiring had to be in tight bundles. Did any of that impact how the damn thing worked? Nope, but I admired the level of pride he took in how it looked. I like to think watching that had a profound effect on me. It led me to eventually become an engineer like him. But I often wonder why I have such a fascination and laser focus on creating a pristine shop to work in. I mean, he proved that it's not needed, so am I pursuing that ever-elusive shop greatness for another reason? Is the thing I'm chasing actually the shop itself and not the ability to make cool stuff? I have always enjoyed creating things. It's been a through line of my story since I was a kid. But as I'm fitting out this new shop with all these shiny new toys, I'm kind of left wondering how I'll feel when it's done. Of course, a shop is never done, per se. There's always things to improve, right? Make things a little bit more organized, set things up to be a little bit more efficient, make the process of making just a little bit more enjoyable. I guess what I'm getting at is that as this shop construction is coming to a close and it becomes a usable space to build in, I feel almost pulled in two different directions. On one hand, I see tons of opportunity to keep building out the inside of the shop. But on the other, I can't help but feel a bit like an imposter. Here I am, lucky enough to be in this amazing workspace with every tool at my disposal. Like, okay, now you're supposed to build things in this place. Dance, monkey. But is that actually what I want to do? Or just what I think my dad would do? It's a tale as old as time, right? Sons constantly seeking the elusive approval of their fathers. It's an invisible force that pushes all of us to do better, to be better. I certainly think that living up to my dad has made me better, and I know he's proud. Yet I still feel the need to prove myself to him. So do I keep toiling away at straightening my proverbial airlines, or do I just get to work? Regardless, I think we can all agree that I'll be well equipped to do either one. And as I get these last pieces set in place, the workbenches that I built, at times it felt like I was starting from scratch, but I'm reminded that I'm really not. I've got these great projects that I just really haven't been able to enjoy. But now that these are kind of set in place, very rough place, it feels a lot more like a workshop. And this is obviously a very rough layout, but let me kind of walk you through what I'm thinking starting at my new table saw, which is my new Harvey 110S 36 Pro table saw. And I've got to say, this is the nicest table saw I've ever even put my hands on. It's a 4 horsepower, 220 volt beast. The fence on this thing is unreal. The rails, the tabletop, even the mobile base it's sitting on. The quality is insane and I can't wait to use it. Now, as you see, my table saw is currently sit kind of up against this wall rather than in the center of the shop, which would be a more conventional layout for a pure wood shop. I'm electing to do this instead because as I was doing the layout way back when I built my little miniature model of my shop, I felt like this would be the most efficient means of routing dust collection instead of having a drop down the center of my shop, which I want to avoid. So we'll see if it sits here. I will put an outfeed table on this side, and I've got enough room front and back to rip full 8-foot pieces. So time will tell. Now, as we move past the table saw, we get to this wall here, which I currently have all of the other big power tools lining up on. So new router table, my drill press, my tinier bandsaw, and my new Harvey bandsaw. Again, this layout is just kind of my first pass. I think it makes sense, again, from a dust collection efficiency routing standpoint. I can have individual drops to each one of these machines, but I already kind of think that some of this is going to be moved. Drill press might move to a different part of the shop. We're just gonna have to see how it works out. And as you make your way to this corner, you reach this big giant blank wall, and this is where a wall of cabinets is gonna go, including a miter station. Obviously right now it's just being used to store some material for an outdoor part of the project, but I've got a really cool idea for a combination of lowers and upper cabinets that I frankly have not seen anyone else do in their shop. So stay tuned for that one. And then of course, smack dab in the center of the shop is my versatile workbench that I built several years ago, as well as the smaller compact workbench that I built after that. I'm not sure that this one's gonna stay long-term, but for now it's giving me more work surface so I can build out the rest of the shop. And then in this little nook over here, which is eventually going to be the metalworking side of the shop, we've obviously got the Waterjet, we've got some cabinets set up. This is where the welder is eventually gonna go, and I've got some cool plans for other stuff. But for now, it's kind of a staging area of all the tools so that it's not in the background of all the other shots. That's a YouTube secret, so you think my shop is actually cleaner than it is. And then coming back around to where we started, we've got the garage door, we've got my wood storage cart just awkwardly hanging out right here, and then the feature wall with the laser and a small workbench. Still got to mount the TV. There you have it, kind of my V0 layout for my shop. Now, is it going to change in the future? Absolutely. I just wanted to walk through kind of my thought process as to why I set things up the way I did. But the real reason you clicked on this video, let's be honest, is to find out how much it costs to build this damn thing. So let's get into it. Now, a little over 1 year ago, when we were just getting started breaking ground on this project, I said this. And per usual, I'm gonna be completely transparent on actual cost of this project, so make sure you're subscribed and following along so you can see how this thing turns out. And because I'm a man of my word, I will now share with you exactly how much this place costs to build, down to the last penny. But before we do that, I wanna make this very clear. I'm sharing in the interest of transparency, not to gloat or brag or show off. If you've been watching my YouTube channel for the past couple of years, you know that I used to do an income breakdown where I showed exactly how much money I made from YouTube. And I did that for the same reason. I just wanted to share because I know a lot of people are curious. It wasn't to show off in any way. Now, I haven't done one of those income breakdowns in a couple of years because I started feeling weird about doing it, but I just want you to know this is the same kind of peek behind the curtain to share with you exactly how much something like this realistically costs, whether you are planning on doing this yourself or if you're just curious. So hopefully the numbers help you, but just know I'm not doing this to show off. Oh, and for context, on this ground floor of the shop, there's about 850 square feet of usable shop space, about 50 square feet of bathroom, and a total of about 500 square feet in this upper attic area. Okay, so being the engineer that I am, I've got this all neatly categorized into a bunch of different sections, and I of course kept an Excel spreadsheet during this entire project, so I know for sure what I spent. But what I'm also gonna share are in areas where I actually had savings from either doing it myself or from getting free material because I do YouTube videos. So I'll give a total cost had I not got any of that, and then my actual cost, subtracting those things out. Also worth mentioning, I did contract the major construction of this project out to a contractor, so I wasn't subbing everything out myself. So because of that, I don't have the complete transparency into all of like the finite details, but I was able to break out everything as best I could. All right, starting with design. We've got a set of drawings, which was $2,500. I got a site survey and a topographical map for $1,600, and the various permits, both that I pulled as well as my contractor pulled, is about $2,200. So the design phase total is $6,359. Then comes site prep. So we had a bunch of tree removal. That was $6,000. I rented a skid steer, tore up my backyard, and rented a dumpster to haul that stuff off. That was $2,600. And because I rented the skid steer and drove it myself, I had an estimated labor savings of about $2,500. That means the site prep total is $11,100. Now for the foundation, the biggest ticket item on this entire project. If you remember back to those early videos, we had a huge hill where this shop is sitting, so we had to dig out a ton of dirt and create a special engineered foundation to hold back that dirt. So the foundation was handled by my contractor, Ram Restoration, and that was quoted at $81,115. And then the additional cost of sealing the backside of that retained wall of the foundation, which was about $1,000. And then supplies that I bought, like running conduit through it, was about $163. So the total foundation cost was $82,243. Woof. All right, next comes framing. This was again handled by the contractor. Framing materials came in at $16,792. Framing labor was $9,770. Renting a crane for a day was $952. And then miscellaneous supplies that I bought was $274. That brings the framing total at $27,789. Next up is electrical. Now my contractor pulled a new 200 amp service to the building. For that, they charged me $4,826. The 10,000 trips to the hardware store of all the electrical supplies came out to $5,888, mostly because I ran far too many circuits and put in way too many outlets. The shop lights were $2,500, but I got a discount for showing them on YouTube, so I'll subtract that out at the end. And I have an estimated labor savings because I did all of the electrical in this place at a very conservative $6,000. That brings my electrical total to $19,219. Next up are utilities, and this is where I went a little overboard. For my HVAC mini split system, that estimated cost is $5,500 for the 2 zones and the condenser, but because they were a sponsor, I was given that material for free, so we'll subtract that out at the end. The compressed air piping system, again, was supplied by the company for being featured in the video, but I had to end up buying some more supplies. The total value of that was $2,234. Then came the plumbing, which was handled by the contractor. That's obviously roughing in the foundation, tying into our house, and doing the final connections once we got our stuff set in the bathroom. That came to $20,950. And then for all the various ducting and miscellaneous stuff I shoved in the walls and ceilings, that was $2,100. Running a gas line through the shop for the eventual outdoor kitchen was $600. The various networking I ran through the shop, as well as tying a fiber line to my house, was $491. And finally, the small hot water heater I put upstairs was $388. So the total utility side of things was $32,265. Next up is drywall and insulation. Buying all of the drywall and insulation at once was $5,042. I then had to buy additional supplies totaling $1,063. I hired a crew to come do all that because I have no idea how to drywall. That was $3,200, which brings the drywall and insulation total to $9,306. Whew. Next up is interior finishing and the bathroom. Got miscellaneous finishing supplies, some paint and primer, that was $750. Having a crew come in and prime and paint the entire inside of the shop was $2,300. Buying a bunch of these small pre-built thermally insulated attic doors was $894. Putting in the luxury vinyl plank flooring upstairs, the material cost on that was $3,700, which I was supplied because they were a sponsor. And then the estimated labor savings, because I did it all myself, was about $2,500, which both of those we'll take out at the end. The stair and railing materials was $715. Having somebody come in and tile the bathroom, install doors, and install trim around the entire shop was $7,800. Buying a fancy smancy bathroom vanity was $1,138. Having somebody come back in, caulk, paint the trim, and all the doors was $1,600. Then for the epoxy floor, the material cost on that was $3,770, which I got for free because they were a sponsor. Renting the diamond brush grinder for the concrete was $184, and my estimated labor savings for doing all of that epoxy work myself was about $4,500. So we'll subtract, again, that stuff out at the end. But the total for interior finishing in the bathroom was $29,851. Now for the exterior. The contractor doing the roof, the siding, the soffit, and the fascia for the materials was $20,287. The labor for the roof was $4,320. The labor for the siding was $5,334. The labor for doing all the trim work and the soffit around the outside was $4,927. Installing the gutters was $1,938. The stone veneer around the bottom of the shop to match our house came out to about $10,732. Whew. Painting the exterior of the shop cost me $4,000 to match our house. Having the contractor put in the doors and windows was $3,149. And my fancy smancy insulated garage door came out to $2,738. The tongue and groove wood for the porch ceiling, which is pre-stained, cost me $2,200. And the labor savings of doing it myself was $750, which we'll take out at the end. So the total for exterior finishing, which includes roof, siding, all that stuff, is $55,378. Whew. This brings the grand total, without subtracting anything out, to $278,509 to build this shop. And if I add up all the discounts of doing work myself and getting material supplied to me because I make YouTube videos, the total savings was $31,350, which means the total I spent out of pocket was $247,159. Now, obviously, that is a really big number. There's just no getting around it. Had you told me before I started that this was going to cost me almost $250,000, I don't know that I would have started. I naively thought before we ever did anything that I could keep this somewhere around 150 grand. Hilarious. But honestly, even at that price, this is just an overbuilt garage with a bathroom. And yes, this structure will add value to our home, to the right buyer, obviously, but there's no way I'm gonna recoup that. So there you have it, full open kimono. Maybe if you're thinking about doing a project like this, those numbers helped you, or maybe you're just curious and I've scratched that itch. But the good news is that now that we're done, we can start finally building out the inside of the shop and doing all the cool shop organization things, which, let's be honest, is what I enjoy. So if you wanna follow along, make sure you're subscribed. Until next time, keep pursuing shop greatness.